Good morning. It's Friday, July 11th, 2025. This is the Dryden Public Broadband Committee meeting. It's one of our two meetings each month. This is the first meeting of the month. Typically, we meet on the first and third Friday, but for July and August, we're meeting on the second and fourth Friday due to the 4th of July holiday last Friday. This is our reporting meeting, so we're going to go over the presentation deck that has been prepared by members of the team and give an update on everything that's going on. There'll be some time in between as we go through the deck for Q&A as we dive deeper into parts of it. And looks like we have a record number of people here. So thanks everyone for showing up. So we'll start with this executive summary. This kind of covers the highlights of the month for the most part. Um, Three main highlights. One is we now have 432 paying customers, which is 30 more in June. In May, we added 22, so uh, more than in May. Not as many as our high water, which was, I think, 65 back in the winter, but we did have an increase of 30 new customers in the month of June. We also had 31 inbound requests, and later in the report, I'll show you the ratio of people signing up who are in the green zone is much higher than it has been. Um, Probably because we're doing marketing in the green zone, plus we have more green zone. We are now at 1,807 parcels, which is almost 31% of the town. So we're well on our way, but we are going to be increasing the pace of that. We're now over 3 years since groundbreaking, which was in May of 2022. There's very little reason why we should only be at 30% after over 3 years. A project this size, given the towns and given the experience that Vantage has as our engineering firm, uh, this has gone on much longer than would be expected for the number of miles we're building. And we've been spending the last 4 months really closely with Vantage to figure out what's the path forward, because the pace we were on was going to make this a 10-year project, 10% per year, which is wildly like off the charts, like doesn't make any sense in any world that a project like this would take that long. But that was the pathway we were on prior to Vantage coming on board. I hope that we're at 100% by the end of 2027. That's 2.5 years from now. I hope we're done at 100% before that. But at 30% in 3 years, that's, again, not at all what was planned or expected for the project. And to take 7 more years to do 70% is just, it's not going to happen. We've made some changes in the last 4 months. A lot of it looks like slowing down on production to make new parcels in the green zone. But there were a lot of things that we had to go through, update, and fix to get on our way to going much faster and in a much more secure way going forward. Any questions about these first two bullets before we jump on? Okay. So the next one is also a very big piece of news that has been taking a ton of time from people across the project, a lot from Brad Penny from Vantage and Amanda from our finance team, our finance director for the project, which is that the municipal infrastructure program, which we were awarded last June at $9.9 million project size, $8.9 million grant, we have increased the project total to 12.55 million, with the grant amount being paid for increased the same amount. The matching amount, which had previously been 10% that we were contributing, does not carry through for this increase. So we've increased the project size by 2.65 million, and they've granted us the additional 2.56 million as of Thursday, June 26th. Now, there's two reasons for that. Partially, it was the higher than expected per mile cost. The original engineering plan that was approved had a per mile cost that was way below the average mile per mile cost of any broadband project in this part of the country. Um, and there was 14 miles missing from the plan. We were going to get to a place probably next August or September where we ran out of money and we missed 14 miles of fiber. We made that case to New York State. We went back and forth with them with a lot of details, plans, drawings, schedules. And as I said, on Thursday, June 26th, they said, we're, we're going to be able to give you more funding. Now, that's between quietly between the 20 of us. Um, they've said that. Now, we're working closely with the Connect All office, New York State's Connect All office, to solidify this. And that is because of the next three things. One is they have to reissue the grant disbursement agreement that says, here is what you have to do, the milestones, the dollars you have to spend per each of the four milestones from now through the end of the project in December of 2026. The timeline does not change with this additional grant amount. We should have that grant disbursement agreement next week. Once we reviewed it, then it goes to the Empire State Development, who is underwriting the entire grant. They only meet four times a year, and their next meeting is in October. So they're going to meet in October, and then they will sign off on this grant amount. After that sign off, um, then we can sign the agreement. The next day, we can submit our first grant disbursement reimbursement request, and we think we'll get paid sometime 3 to 4 months after we submit it. So sometime in early 2026, we'll get our first of four payments from New York State. Right now, my estimate with Amanda and with Brad is that it'll be about a $2 million reimbursement coming early in Q1 2026. The other piece about the timing of this October 2025 meeting is that the Connect All office doesn't want to have a big event to promote this until after it's been approved by Empire State Development. So it's provisionally approved. They've agreed to it. We'll have paper in hand next week that says the details. And then in roughly 3 months, we'll be able to tell the public at a much wider level press release or event. It may be in coordination with an October groundbreaking in the month of Caroline. We're projecting that will break ground probably for their central office, their shed at the Caroline Town Hall in October. So it might roll all into that one big press event, groundbreaking for Dryden Fiber into Caroline, and increase of the project size and the state funding by 2.6 million. It looks like only three big bullets, but it's a lot of stuff that happened over the last 30 days to get here. Any questions on MIP or where we are with the project?
Timelines don't change at all, Dave. We're still confident we can meet those.
I like to refer to Brad on the confidence of hitting the project timelines. So, and it's been a month since I asked Brad on camera. Brad, how are you feeling about the timelines for MIP and the overall
No,
timeline?
I feel good about them. To Dave's point that he mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of evaluation done, not only to work with the state, get the additional funds to make sure this is a successful project, but also in the background, a lot of engineering work has taken place as well. Quickly, I think our biggest hurdle is going to be poll applications, and I can speak to that a little bit more in my update, Graham, later. But that's going to be our biggest challenge. But as we sit now, no, I am confident that we will meet our timelines.
Great.
Thanks, Graham.
And,
Thanks, Brad.
and thanks for all the work getting this, organizing this, Dave. That you and Amanda and Brad have done a great job here of getting expanded and more money. So
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, it would have been a pretty tough day a year from now realizing that we've spent all the money and we have a lot of work left to do.
Hey, Dave, was there after the Empire State Development Board approves it, was there a second step that Nick had mentioned? I thought there was some other administrative thing, or is that it?
There's a bunch of paperwork that has to go back and forth around the grant disbursement agreement. I think it's 7 different things that we have to do. Amanda has the full list. We haven't started those yet because we're not operating completely just in time, but like we're trying to do the things that are the highest priority, closest due dates. But
Okay.
there
Yeah.
are a number of things we have to together.
Yeah, mostly it's some administrative, like W-9s, we have to pay the fee, signatures. I think we have to provide insurance documents. So it's a list, and they'll send us the list again with the updated information with the GDA, I'm
Okay.
sure.
There's no further approval on their side needed. Basically, we need to get the paperwork done.
We
Yeah, I
had to
think
provide
right.
updated Exhibit E, and Dave and Brad had to do something with the challenge locations. But I think that's the main pieces. Dave, what else? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think the thing about there's 3 different documents with the state. There's the original grant proposal that they gave to us last June that we talked about and had and celebrated as like this is what it is. The second is the Empire State Development approval of the funding amount. And the third is the actual GDA that says here's how to achieve the project goals to get the funding for each. And what Amanda mentioned, Exhibit E, that outlines the 4 different milestones, the dates, what we have to have it built by each of those dates, and how much we can have spent and ask for reimbursement for on each of those dates. So I think those are the 3 pieces.
Great. Thank you.
Regarding the number of locations, we'll talk about that in a couple minutes on the MIP slide. Okay. Just checking on the goals for the year. This is for Dryden Fiber. Goal was to hit 1,017 locations by the end of the year. We are well behind that schedule. As you see in the actual new column, December we had 65, and then we kind of dropped down in the 50s, 40s, and 20s. Now we're back up into 30 installs in the month of June. If we did get 65 more, we would end at about 820 locations, almost 200 shy of what we had projected. And that's because of the slowdown right now in the green zone production. We had new green zones right away. 15 to 20% of people who live there sign up. We're not adding as many green zones, so those early adopters are not jumping on because we haven't been adding those. It's very easy to market to them. It doesn't cost very much because they've already heard about the project. They're excited. They've been talking to their friends. They've been talking to us about it. As soon as they're in the green zone, they sign up. The next wave of prospective customers are the ones who are waiting to see what their neighbors do. And if their neighbors like it, then they'll sign on. So we're putting together some marketing efforts to reach them. And that's one thing we can use to build up the network, the numbers, as we're also building more green zone parcels. As Brad and I talked earlier this morning about the speed, we think it's going to, the speed of the project will increase substantially as permits come through and as we assign tasks out to our engineering partners, our construction partners, which means almost every week we can start projecting green zone updates as that starts to move forward. Probably starting October, November, green zone updates every week, which would mean increased flow of new customers coming on board every week. We could still hit 1,000 this year. Really depends on how quickly we get through this last piece of permitting, the bidding out of the work, and then the awarding of the work to construction.
Now, Dave, I thought we had got approval for a lot of the permits within Dryden. I mean, months ago.
I thought we had 2, and what we learned in the last few months was there was a number of segments of town where construction had been completed without permits. So now we're backfilling and catching up.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of noise in the machine. We're cleaning it all out. This is the project highlights for MIP from a year ago. We will have an updated version of this with the new total number of locations and miles and the total investment amount. This says 124.6 miles and 2,674 miles locations. I'm going to go to the scoreboard next to talk about where we are with those. So previous slide, a year ago, we were awarded funding to reach 124.6 miles. As you see in the lower left-hand corner, that number is now 186.2 miles within MIP. So that's a 62-mile increase that was not in the original plan. Some of that is work that we have already completed prior to June 16th of last year, but it counts toward the total miles we're trying to achieve. The other item to note was we had been awarded funding to reach 2,674 locations. And now in this middle box on the top, we're at 2,711 locations. There's two reasons for that. In September of last year, BEAD funding was announced, and there were 61 locations in the town of Dryden that were not selected or not covered by the original engineering plan to service all unserved and underserved in the town of Dryden. So there were 61 locations that were unserved or underserved, which means either dial-up or DSL, in the town of Dryden that were missed from the original plan. Most of these were 500 plus feet away from the road, and we believe there was a filter missing when our prior engineering partner did the mapping and just left out these 61 locations. Now, we needed to go and claim those for our project because if we didn't, we could risk the chance that another provider could come in and request funding to reach those 61 very remote locations, 500 feet plus from the road, and get funding for it. So we claim those 61 for us, except New York State said we're not going to give you any more funding to reach them. You have to use the existing budget and your contingency to reach those 61 locations. That brought our number from the original 2,674 that was on here. We increased that by 61 and we're at 2,735. Now we're down to 2,711, and that is because since the increase of the BEAD locations and hiring Advantage, we took a deep dive at every single one of the 2,735 locations, and we identified that there were 24 that were not BSLs. These are not locations that are serviceable or need service for broadband. This includes cell towers, radio towers, garages, outbuildings that were in some list of FCC data from the summer of 2023 that said they should be reached. And since then, of those 24, I believe 13 of them have been removed by FCC already. They've taken them off the map. They're like, these aren't real BSLs. These are not broadband serviceable locations. Of the remaining 11, we've challenged FCC and we've given this full number of 24 locations to New York State to say, please remove these from our grant. And they've removed those from the project. All this matters because some of these are very remote parcels. They're like miles away from the network, where if we built out to there, it would cost a lot of money. And then we would get there and there would be nothing there to attach to because there's no structures on those properties. or in some cases, it's a cell tower 2 miles from our network. We have to spend our mileage, our per mile rate, $45,000 per mile to build out to a non-house, a non-BSL. Any questions on this part of the MIP before we look at the progress? The miles or the number of parcels reached?
So
Dave
Dave,
is, sorry,
reconcile all the parcels then that we were questioning that we've been talking about in the last few meetings. So basically, we've got back something that we can actually serve, we've added some miles, and we've removed all that we thought. There aren't any other ones sitting out there that we can't reach or, are still in question.
I'm going to say I'm like 99.9% confident in the list at this point. I'm not saying that something else might not sneak in, but given that the budget has a contingency fund component to it, if one does somehow have snuck through, we'll find a way to reach it. But we've gone through the list between the members of the steering committee, Amanda, Brad, the engineering teams. We've driven around. We've driven around with Josh Breitbart from New York State Connect All office. We've looked at these locations. Like, we've been very, very focused on this in a way that what this did not happen in the original application process last March, April.
Yeah.
So I will be at 100% of confidence of this when the project's over and we've reached everyone that we said we were going to do. We thought we were done a few times, and then we found a few more locations that were just very questionable. And ultimately, they were not BSLs as defined by FCC.
so there's got to be a document that lists all these properties, right?
Yeah, there's two documents. There's the locations list document that we work with New York State to update every week and every month. It says, here's the locations, here's the status of them, which ones have been built to, which ones have signed on. Then there is another list of here's the 24 locations that we're removing. And those will go before the town board of Caroline and Dryden this month. The town board's going to have that list and be able to sign off. And they have to attest that, yes, as the town boards of each town, we are approving to remove these from the grant based on these locations. So
Are those documents something we can see somewhere?
yeah, I can show those to the Public Broadband Committee. So the only thing I haven't updated on here is the percentages. The numbers are up to date. So of the months to go, we have 18 months to go. Plenty of time. 66% of the time is left. Is that right? Only used a third of the time so far. That might not be right. We got a lot of time left to go. We have reached 236 of the 2,711 parcels. So we're on our way. Like I said, the percentages aren't updated yet. We have already installed 41 of the 400 installations. These are all in Dryden because we haven't broken ground in Caroline yet. For miles completed, we've completed 23 of the 186 miles. We have to complete at least 58 of the miles by the end of the year to get our second reimbursement request submitted. Unserved, of the 470 that are listed as unserved, we've reached 4 of those so far. And of the underserved, we haven't reached any of those yet. So that's kind of like dial up in DSL. We haven't reached any of the underserved yet. But we are. This project is all about reaching them. So as we break ground in Caroline, that's a big part of the unserved and underserved, as well as in the southern half of Dryden, south of Route 13. Tony.
So help me understand that. So there's 41 MIP installs. So all but 4 of those must be along the route to get to the unserved and underserved?
That's right.
Okay. All right. That's why there's a difference between number reached and MIP installs.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a brief period last year when some of our for-profit competitors tried to lobby that we could only access and provide service to the 470 plus 74 locations and not service the houses we passed on the way to reaching these underserved. And New York State said, we want Dryden Fiber to be a sustainable business, and to do that, you have access to every house you pass on the way to reaching these.
Right. Okay, so that's the top number, but the bottom number, why is the MIP install bottom number 400 and the unserved and underserved is 544?
Good question. So the 470 plus 74 are the locations that are currently unserved or underserved between the two towns. This means they have no broadband options, no terrestrial broadband options. The 400 is in the project budget. They've given us funding to provide service to 400
Got it.
customers.
Okay.
It could be any of the 2,711, but we have received funding for 400 of them.
Right. And we don't expect that just because we hit all 500, just because we reach or we can provide service to all 544 properties does not mean that they're necessarily going to get service.
It doesn't mean that they will sign up for service.
Right. Right.
This is
And installs are actual installs. It's
that's right.
people sign up. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Just because we can provide service doesn't mean they have to. This is a non-compulsory public service. If they want to use it, they can. I know there's some people on this call who are residents who would love to be in the green zone and be able to be part of that parcels reached, so they can.
Yeah, there are a few of us on this. Yes.
Including you, Tony. I mean, of the 2,711, I can tell you there are at least 2 of those 2,711 parcels on this call. Like, people on this call will be funded. Their installations will be funded by New York State from this grant.
Yeah, I'm not in an MIP section, but yeah, you're right. There are a couple people that are, right.
There's at least 2. So we're working. We have to reach all 2,711 before the end of next year, by 12/31/26.
Right.
That will still leave us with a bunch of other parcels across the town of Dryden after MIP, and we'll get to those in the future. But we will reach all those. And, as I said earlier, and as Brad shared, we do expect the speed of this to ramp up, so that way it's not like we're not going to hit 100 parcels by next December and 2,600 parcels in the month of December of next year. Like, this will be continually being updated month to month over the next 18 months.
Right.
I'll update the percentages, and then we'll be able to look at these reports month to month to actually see the trend lines. After like 3 or 4 or 5 months, we can start to put these into the bar charts so you can see the lines moving in the right direction as we fill in the percentages. Any questions on the scoreboard? Okay. Let's do some team reports. We will start with Amanda and the customer base.
So you can see here our customer base increased by 30 residential customers in the month of June. No change in commercial customers. Can't say I know one was just installed, and I think there are a couple more scheduled this month. So, so we should see that change coming soon.
Thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
We should put the break-even chart right after this, because it ties directly to this in the future. All right. I don't know if we have anyone from Integrity here for the customer service. It basically ties in pretty consistently what we've been doing. The ticket to customer ratio is 21% for the month of June. In May, it was 18%. This is kind of the direction we want to be in, around 20%. We have more customers now than we did back in January, but also the goal is that people can self-service their support as they need on their own through the website, through their customer support pages, the FAQ, and they can register and request service on their own without having to call and create a bunch of tickets around an installation request. Did have some pretty rapid turnaround on some emergency work that was done. Eric from Clarity Connect is here. Someone asked me this week who handles our customer support and who handles the in-person work. That Tegrity does all of our support. They operate 24/7, 365. We pay them a flat fee to do that, which right now for our tier is around $5,000 a month. They were doing it for us, but also for 18 other ISPs. So that's how they can operate 24/7, 365. If we had to hire our own support team and even try to service them 40 hours a week with sick days and vacation time, we would never be able to, it wouldn't calculate, it would be a lot more expensive. So by outsourcing that, it really works for us. Now that's just for handling inbound support calls and scheduling installs. When work has to get done, we dispatch Clarity Connect for installations as well as for repairs. I think somehow, for the first time in months, we had two customers lose their own service at their house. And they reported like on Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. First thing Monday, Clarity was dispatched, and I think both of those were taken care of by noontime on Monday. So pretty quick turnaround on support.
So do we
Any
know why they
questions?
lost service, Dave?
Yeah, one of them, the fiber that goes from the house to the NID, and then from the NID, which is the box outside the house, to the inside the house, got like, it wasn't broken, but it was like tight in a way that the data was not flowing through the glass. So they straightened it out, cleaned it up. Not quite sure if someone tugged on it and that tightened the coil, but they fixed it, and they have a really great digital platform where whenever they go on site, both for installations and for fixes, they use their cell phones. They take pictures of everything they see and do. They upload them to their website. That way, Eric, who's on the call, who manages his team, Tom Hardy, who runs Clarity Connect, they can see what happened on site. And they've given me access so I can go and like drill down and see like what happened with this customer service issue. It's pretty amazing. I can't remember what the other one was. Eric, do you know what the other incident was? I think he's muted right now. I think they dug it up, if I had to guess.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I think they might have dug up their network. People should be aware, like when you have fiber at your house, it came in underground. If there's nothing, like don't just dig everywhere in your yard.
I know
If you're
one
doing
hit
any
the fiber
digging-
with I know one who hit the fiber with a lawnmower.
Yeah,
Uh,
contractors dug up the drop cable and broke it. That was at one Halls Road,
Oh, right.
Halls Wood
Yeah,
Road.
you should call DigSafe even if you're digging your own yard. And it would go through the system, get processed, and it would get marked if you weren't sure where it was.
Yeah.
That's the best practice. Anytime you're doing digging. All right, let's talk about sales operations. One note, Adam's here instead of Tracy. Tracy Monell, who runs a lot of our, we call it sales, business development, customer outreach. He's our liaison for MDUs. He gets all the details for our property owner agreements. He does some of our business-to-business sales, talking to business owners about becoming part of the platform. He emailed me late Wednesday night with appendicitis, so he's out for a little while. So his son Adam, who's part of the Gleeman project team, is on the call. I took some of the data that we've been collecting on our sales operations, put them together for this month, but just talk through where we are with these slides with this data. So the first one on the left, business tier prospects. We've identified, I believe, 82 total business tier prospects. These are businesses in the green zone. So we've identified 82 of them. 18 have signed up, so it's 22%. And the remaining 64 are still out there that could or should become customers. We've done some work to reach them, but it has been a while. I looked at the list. The last time we made direct phone calls to about a third of them was in 2024, in the first half of the year. So it's been almost 18 months for some of them. Another handful, about 25 of them, Trace and I went door to door in the village of Dryden in April and tried to get a few of them to move over and come on board. So there is a big opportunity for us to grow our numbers in the existing green zone just with business customers. The next is this rental units and MDUs by count. We have signed, we have, probably we should put the totals on here to make it a little bit better. We've identified 61 retail locations in the green zone. These are with one or more units. Of those 61, 34 have signed off on the agreements, and 10 more we've sent agreements to, but they have not yet signed off. Now, that still means there's 17 that we've identified that we have not yet had a conversation with. Either they haven't contacted us or their tenants haven't contacted us, or we haven't received the information we need to send them the agreement. So there's some opportunity there in the rental units that have not yet signed property management agreements so we can provide service to their tenants. And then finally, that's the number of units based on number of locations, based on parcels. The next one is based on actual number of apartments, basically, within those units. And we've identified, of the ones that are signed, it's 231 locations. We've sent out for another 74, but the ones we've identified that have not yet signed, or we haven't even sent paperwork to them, is 219. So almost half of what is in the green zone. We've identified that they should be customers, but we haven't even sent the paperwork yet. So there's just a lot of opportunity out there for the customer base in these rental properties. Now that we've seen it, we can track it, we can measure it, we can start to work to chipping this away to getting to 100% signed for both the count in the second and third chart. Same thing for the orange piece on the first chart, get that to be up to 100% of business prospects on board. Any questions on where we are with this look at the sales operations? If you or someone you know is a business or a property owner in the green zone, please have them reach out to us, use our sign up form, request service. We can either provide them a service directly. For the businesses, installation time right now is generally around 7 days when they sign up. And for the rental units, it's pretty quick to turn the paperwork around and get it to them. If they do have the rental unit paperwork and they have questions about it, that's great. We're happy to answer questions and go over it in detail. I have a copy of it on my desk for one of the businesses in the green zone who just wanted to go over it line by line and just make sure that they understood what we were asking for and why. So there we are. All right. Installs. This is just a little bit deeper of what Amanda talked about, 22 installs. This says 22 this month. I think we had 30. Maybe this is not up to date. As of July 1st, there were 8 installs scheduled for July. So not as many as we had in the past as of the first of the month. Installation blockers, I wrote this up. There are some challenges once we do have a multiple dwelling unit sign on. And really there's two types. There are mobile home parks where we have to figure out how do we get fiber to each individual mobile home. These parks tend to have anywhere between 10 and 60 mobile homes, which means you have to bring in fiber to 10 to 60 different individual locations once we're on that parcel. It only counts as one parcel to the count, but it could be up to 50 or 60 or even 75 locations within that parcel. The other type of MDU is apartment buildings, where we have to bring in a certain amount of fiber to the building and figure out once we get to the building, how do we get it to each individual unit in the building? Is that building prepared to provide service to their tenants? So MDU work requires substantial information from the building owner or the property owner, and then a substantial amount of engineering planning, how we're going to bring in. And that means the first bullet, getting enough fiber to the location so we can reach all the tenants. Doesn't help us to just bring in one strand and try to hope that reach everyone. Determine now we know how much we need to bring in, how we're going to actually get it from our network on the street, from the property line to the actual units, or how to get it into the building to the individual units. All those are challenges that we presented to Vantage. They've assigned some engineering resources to help figure these things out for both mobile home parks and apartment buildings. Earlier this week, we met with Dryden Apartments to look at how we can reach a couple of their properties here in the village of Dryden. The other installation blocker, as I said a few times, construction pause leads to installation slowdown because early adopters propel our growth. Any questions on installs for the month of June? All right, marketing, total under contract, again, 432. Requests, 31 new requests this month. Of those, 17 were in the green zone. The number of people who've signed up where we cannot yet service them is 828. So a lot of opportunity when we turn the map green to get these 800 plus people on board. And now the number that is serviceable, that is live, is 83.5%. So of the 517 people who've signed up, we provided service to 432 of them. Website visits up a little bit from the month of May, both in terms of users and new users and sessions. I think that is probably related directly to our participation in the Dryden Dairy Day Parade. We gave out about 200 postcards with our QR code. And literally during the parade, we were getting inbound requests to the website and our request form is being filled out. So people were having that postcard in hand and hitting the QR code. Any questions on where we are with marketing and inbound requests? Okay. Just kind of a fun thing to note. We did 32 installs in June. 18 months ago, in December, January, and February, we did 4 installs in those 3 months. So the speed, this is by quarter for these months, 6 in this quarter, 4 in this quarter, 12 in this quarter, 47 in this quarter. And then as we get closer, we go by the month and we see 30, 20 per month. Marketing, we did Dairy Day back on June 14th. So that was last month. We're working on hiring a part-time marketer, continuing to work on our email marketing strategy. We're doing website updates and social media posts. Did add more signs, about 5 more signs this month. And then yesterday I had a WHC radio interview for about 10 minutes. I just got the alert right before this meeting with a link to the interview. So I'll share that with the committee after this meeting. I can't remember if I shared these last time we met, but here's a couple of pictures of our broadband, of our team from the parade. Dan drove his car in the parade, lightning fast speeds from his Porsche. We also had Bill from Syracuse Utilities in the parade and Christian from Clarity Connect with their installation van in the parade. So a pretty good force, as well as handing out postcards and candy in the parade route. Operations. I think we covered this. This is just some of the detail about MDUs. Yeah, this is covered from what we talked about earlier in the sales part. Now, regarding the MDUs, this is a conversation that we talked about last month, and then Graham sent me some good information about demarcation. When it comes to servicing apartment buildings, where does Dryden Fiber end, and where does the owner of the building take over? So the term in this is called demarcation, or the demarc. This is the physical location where telecommunications service provider's network ends and where the customer's network begins. it marks the boundary of responsibility for installation and maintenance and troubleshooting. In most cases, we would go all the way to the ONU and to the plume device for residential. But if you have a printer on your network or a toaster or refrigerator, you're on your own for those devices. The DMARC for residential is that Wi-Fi device. And if they haven't taken our Wi-Fi device, we are not servicing their Wi-Fi device. We will only service up to the ONU, which is the modem that connects to the Wi-Fi device. Those are the easy ones. For apartment buildings, there tends to be a utility room, and in there is some equipment where our fiber will come in, connect to our equipment, and then from there we'll go to each individual apartment, where we would then also have Wi-Fi devices at those apartments. In some cases, we will not have material going from that utility room to the apartment. It might be coax or Cat5 that we don't want to maintain. So these are some suggestions, I think, from Grant's email. We could use the outside NID as the clear demarcation. Like, we're not doing anything inside of this, but because we provide the ONUs and in some cases the plume devices, we should maintain that for those residential locations. As I have down here on the 5th bullet, in the case of MDUs, we probably need to treat each one differently depending on how they are provisioned. And I think, as Graham put here, we couldn't find that much documentation from searching on how our competition handles these. I would say we probably know, to keep things simple, we don't really want to be in the business of wiring apartment buildings. Graham, do you have anything to add from this? Because I know you did some research and you've been thinking about this project.
Yeah, I mean, I also know what Spectrum has done for me. You know, they will actually go right up into, you know, where your TV is or where your device is. So but it's pretty fraught with how much control you have over that and stuff. So I think we ought to set a DMARC at probably the ONU, wherever, you know, I think that's all we can reasonably probably do. Not that we wouldn't help customers with a little maybe testing or a little bit of troubleshooting, but at some point you can't support that wiring. I mean, or there'd be a cost associated with that. So
Spectrum for TV cable will go up to the device, but as far as internet service goes, it's up to their modem.
yeah, up to the modem. So
Right. So wherever their modem sits, that's their DMARC as far as the internet service is concerned, right?
That's right. They are not doing any wiring.
They don't do wiring inside the house.
They're doing
but
the
they
coax.
will bring the cable, they will bring the
Yeah.
coax to the modem. You know, wherever you
Right.
put the modem in, they will bring the coax to that. But
yeah, that's it.
And we do that too. We bring the
Mhm.
fiber all the way.
in an MDU and especially, I guess, specifically apartment buildings, is there an ONU per apartment?
Brad, you want to talk a little bit about where we are with apartments and
Yeah,
options?
it's kind of a case by case basis, Tony.
Right.
You know, apartments, where it's, you know, 4 units, perhaps there would be an ONU per unit. You know, if it's a 30-unit apartment, we might have to do something a little more clever with a switch inside the building, you know, and distributing from there.
Right.
So it's really a case by case basis. The most ideal way to handle it is an ONU per unit.
Right.
Just cleanly from a billing perspective and serviceability. But there are exceptions to that. You know, if the apartment has coax, for example, within the building, and the appetite for, you know, snaking fiber throughout the building is not there and or not possible, we have to look at that separately as well to do, you know, perhaps an optical to RF conversion to provide service over that coax. So really case by case.
Oh, PoE over coax. I've done that. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we will lose a lot of the
Yeah.
speed if we switch to coax, especially on the upload.
Yeah.
However, as Brad mentioned, some of the apartment buildings we're looking at servicing have, I believe that we were told, 3 feet of concrete and surrounded by brick. 3 feet of concrete between the floors and on the
Yeah.
slab, and brick for walls. Like they were built. They're very cool in the summer. They were built to last with
Yeah.
the infrastructure
Yeah.
not changing. And I don't even think they have Cat 5. I think they have copper for telephone lines and coax for cable.
Yeah.
So snaking those could be
Yeah.
very
Getting stuff up through those buildings is going to be tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this because this will be the third time it's come up this week. What are new construction companies doing when they're planning these buildings? Are they planning fiber to each individual unit from construction? And our guess right now is very case by case. If the construction company is really on the up and up, they're like, it's 2025. We know that there's fiber out there. Our parcel is on fiber. We may as well bring fiber all the way to every individual apartment. But my guess right now is it's a very small percentage of construction companies.
Well, but even if they ran Cat 5 or 6 back to a central room, the ONUs could sit in a central utility closet, right, or somewhere.
That could be done. Sure.
And then you've got Cat 5 or 6 going to the individual apartments.
Yeah, Cat 6 would be better than
Cat 6 would be better, obviously, but
so
some buildings may have put Cat 5 in to their, the newer construction ones may have put Cat 5 into the apartments, but who knows, right? Yeah,
we don't know. I mean, there's a few that are going on right now that are just opening. There's a few that as we drive around, they're under construction right now. So, one conversation, like I said, this is probably the third time this week this has come up is, can the town of Dryden and the town of Dryden building and planning department put together a brief video workshop for construction companies that talks about bringing fiber to the unit? If you're doing an MDU in Dryden, if you're doing an MDU anywhere in the country, consider moving away from the standard one telephone line, one coax cable per box, per unit, and start bringing in fiber from the utility room all the way to each individual unit.
Yeah, it's not a question that's come up in our site plan reviews, because planning board site plan reviews generally are not super concerned with the interior of the building. It's more about the site, right? It's making sure that buildings are sited correctly and have all of the things that they need related to the site, and they really don't focus on what's inside the building. But there's no reason why we at least couldn't have some discussion about it.
Some kind of educational tool, pamphlet, brochure, video,
Yeah.
TikTok. There was a point in time when no construction company would ever think to put coax cable inside their building, or even, 100 years ago, telephone lines or electricity. So at some point, someone did it, and it became the norm. Like, oh, of course, we're going to put in phone lines or coax or Cat 6 or Cat 5.
Cat 6,
we need to help push that forward across the town, both towns. Mark's here from Town of Caroline, to say, like, hey, if you're building new construction, you should consider putting fiber right to each individual unit. It's going to be a much better broadband experience for your tenants.
Or better yet, some form of conduit.
Even better, because we don't know what's right next.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing, like, you could have Ray, when they have the new application come in, make him just tell them, ask them, or if there's something you prepared, just to hand it off to these developers right then.
Right.
And then follow up with them later to see if they actually do it, because if they, because it's their choice ultimately.
They don't have to put in phone lines. They don't have to put in coax. They don't have to put in fiber. They can do whatever they want. But we'd like to recommend that if you're building new, it's much easier to do it new than the retrofit, which is what we're dealing with.
Well, it's a lot easier to put this stuff in, when it's being built, for sure.
And if people are ripping down the studs or something, would Brad maybe have some document he could share with us that would be a starting point for that? What they sort of recommend, a general practice for a modern building?
I can look into that, Graham.
Okay.
We've got integrated services team here that does just that, kind of retrofitting buildings, or snaking walls and that sort of thing. So they might have, hey, here's the best application to start with. So let me
Yeah,
look into that.
here's
Graham.
a good practice. If somebody has a good practice rather than us inventing one or putting one together. And if not, we can probably come up with one. So.
Would this be new construction of any kind, including residential?
It's a lot
Yes,
easier for us to maneuver residential with basically the way that
Yeah.
you see with spectrum cable coax. Like
Mhm.
it comes to the house someplace, it goes to an MDU,
Mhm.
it goes to an ONT, it goes to the modem, and then to the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi device. It's
mean,
really
there's-
to use where the challenges.
It's
Yeah,
the kind of
he-
thing where I think if we just tell the people who are building anything new that this is what we use to hook up into buildings when people want service, they'll know what to use if they're gonna wire it themselves, but.
Yeah,
it's
well,
not-
NICE gives you a pretty good set of documents if you want to, which I was able to use years ago to when I built my house, basically. They sort of tell you what they want, where they want it, that kind of stuff. It all goes back to NEC, but they also had sort of these recommendations, at least, how to do it. So, which
Cool.
and once you've built that sort of document, it's easy to pass it off. It's just
We're like I said, I met with Brad and some of these apartment owners. We're working on plans to figure out where and how much to bring in. We asked them for more information. As we basically take one more step forward in this, we'll come back to the committee to ask about clarification on DMARC for MDUs and where we want to end, and then how do we service these buildings. We don't want to be wiring these buildings for free. That's probably a starting point. But somewhere between each individual unit getting service and the road, we have to figure out where and how we provide them. These are good problems to have. These units, between these two buildings, I think it's 70 units. There's a third building, so I think with a third project, I think it's like between those three, it's like 93 units that we could service.
Is this the IHS?
No, that's separate. That's a whole other
Oh,
project.
that's separate. Okay.
Yeah, it's another 53. So we figured out how to do this, figure out either brand new like INHS and Varna or these three projects for retrofitting. It just opens up a lot of people we can service with broadband.
You want to talk about the IHS bit at all today?
I don't have any, I'm still waiting on them. I don't have anything else yet right at this point.
Because you had requested us to get information. I did poke around. There's definitely, you can go to a wireless. This is for emergency calling. You can go to a wireless device, or the best is to put a POTS line in, plain telephone line in. But how that switches over, and does it have to be in each apartment? There's a lot of nuance around this. Or does it have to be like an emergency call box that just goes and connects to the 911 center or whatever it needs? So the definition of what they really want would need to be clarified. If they wanted one in each apartment, that's definitely different than what you could do otherwise. The other thing when you start thinking about it is, are they going to power the room? Are they putting a UPS in the room so that keeps the networking equipment up and all that kind of stuff? The advantage of a plain old telephone, as long as the line isn't cut, is that it runs in such a low voltage that comes right over the line. So that's why they're one of the best options. And you aren't, and of course, if we have real big emergencies, neither cell towers or eventually the fixed switches can't take a huge capacity. So when everybody goes off hook, we know that they have a percentage which is pretty high that they can take, but nothing's going to be 100% foolproof. So
Can you send me an email with that best recommendation that the best option that you just said?
Okay, yeah, yep.
The last communication I had with them was their engineering lead was out of town, and he was coming back, and they were going to check with him next week. That was 10 days ago or so. So I'll ping them and see where they are with the project and if they still have questions for us.
Okay.
Appreciate your thinking about this project and this paradigm shift of going from coax to providing a service versus a physical. We have to have this thing. Brad, do you have some engineering updates?
Yeah, just a few things I want to share. First of all, like I mentioned earlier, to your question, Graham, poll applications are going to be quickly our biggest risk of the project in the timelines. We did, and I want to share my map here if you don't mind, Dave.
Go for it.
Like participant screen sharing is not allowed at the moment.
Let's see. There is a way that I can try now. You're a co-host.
Yep, that worked.
Cool.
Maybe. There we go. We good? Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is quickly going to be our biggest challenge is getting these poll apps cleared. A lot of the design work is, complete or nearly complete, and it's going to come down to how quickly can we push these poll apps from whatever status they're in to green, which is buildable on this map. So you kind of look at the various colors here. The other thing I want to point out is you'll notice there are some gaps we've identified, in some cases significant gaps. So we've put those into applications. Those will be all submitted today to NYSEG, Frontier, Verizon's of the world, the poll owners. So that's kind of just real briefly on the poll situation.
What's the green and yellow and red? Green is done.
Green is give me 1 second here. Green is basically we have a conditional license to attach.
Okay.
Can you show that to us again, please, Brad?
Yep.
Or send us a shot so we at some point so we can.
No, I clicked the wrong button, Graham, so I apologize. I meant to leave it up. So green is good. That means we have a conditional license to attach. In this case, orange and yellow. Orange means we have a make ready work package submitted to the attacher or to us. And so in those cases, those two orange ones down in Caroline, essentially we've got a make ready package, we've approved it, and those are going out to bid with the various companies. 10.5 or yellow is non-billable quote approval required. So what that means is we've got quotes back from various, and this is yellow, we've got quotes back from various, whether it's HRS or Danella, make ready firms. And essentially what that means is non-billable quote approval is it's in final review with NYSEG Avangrid. Basically, they're reviewing the quotes for the non-billable work or work that is Dryden Fiber is not responsible for. And they're getting that approved so that it can essentially be transitioned to the green stage or 14. What other ones do we have here? Pink. There's just a couple of pink ones in here. Basically, that means it is out for make-ready construction right now. So there's just a couple of apps, Dave, those were the ones we were talking about earlier this week. We had a couple of aging apps, in which we had to kind of press the issue just for a handful of polls because the applications were going to expire because they were first applied for in 2022. And so we had to get those pushed through. We had actually had to ask Avangrid for an extension to get those done in a reasonable time frame. Red or 7.1, essentially that means design is submitted to the joint owner. So that would be a Frontier or Verizon. So Avangrid's done their design and they've passed that along to Frontier or Verizon. What other colors do we
Purple.
have here? Purple.
Red. Yep.
Purple is design input. So basically Labella's done their design and submitted to Avangrid for review. So you can see the various steps that every single pole has to clear to eventually get a conditional license to attach or be green. So it's a pretty cumbersome process. But that's been my biggest focus probably in the last month is pushing those along so that we can get attached. So green is good, yellow is close to good. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So as you know, there's some gaps, but I'm looking at like I'm not seeing anything for like where the south backbone runs.
That's a gap.
So the south backbone was built without any permits?
Isn't that underground, Dave?
So, yeah,
Oh,
so
that's underground. That's
there-
underground. You're
from Varna,
yep.
oh, so it's underground from the rail trail at Mount Pleasant up to the top of Mount Pleasant at Deer Haven.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it switches
Yep.
over to Point Broadband's 3 miles to the top of the
That's
radio
right.
tower. And then it goes
Yeah.
back underground all the way through back to the village line.
Yeah. Right. We don't need pole permits for underground work, right? That's why we don't see anything along the rail trail too, right? Got it.
Correct. Yeah, and so I misspoke there, Tony, when you mentioned the south backbone, because I was thinking the backbone to get down to Caroline, which you can see there is a
Right,
in fact,
right.
a gap.
Yeah, that part, right. Yeah. I'm thinking about the south loop that runs over Ferguson and that whole route, right? But that's all I forgot. That's all that's mostly underground work. And a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of stuff in that area that's underground. And then up Route 13, we don't that the Empire Overlash, we don't need permits for those poles either because it was an overlash, right?
Correct.
Just permission.
But
Just
where
permission, right? Yeah.
where we're seeing these red dots in a lot of the green areas, that's holding us getting across things. Is that right? You know, if you
Correct.
see them dotted around Freeville and Etna, that's so we've got one pole that we need to sort of really progress. Isn't that the case?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, Graham, these are packaged nicely geographically, but that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Right.
So again, that is like I said, quickly going to become this project's biggest hurdle. But we are working it. We're on with the various pole owners, you know, at least once a week, pushing this with them. In addition to just, you know, I've got a dedicated staff member that he works with these folks daily on pushing these various requests that either come from them or checking in on things that are perhaps aging. So yeah, that's a quick application.
Brad, can I ask you a question? Because like this Kimberly Griffiths put a comment in. I don't know if anyone's addressed it yet. Just it's a big. I know it's something I even asked Dave this week, but when like I know Syracuse Utilities is going around correcting some things, but when are they going to get back out running lines to expand the available parcels? And then
So Dave, if you want to pull the
and just
slides
really
back
quick,
up.
because I you know this meeting's getting, you know, we're coming up on an hour and a half. It's two. and I
Yeah,
got
so
other-
I mean the cliff notes of it, Jason, and it's a question we're all very focused on. is here in the next 2 weeks. We are going to issue a bid package for a large portion, if not all of Dryden, to basically get a contractor, in theory, Syracuse Utilities, engaged, under contract, following the correct procedures of both towns and the state in terms of procurement, so that we are on the up and up there. A 2-week period for then response, and that puts us at mid-August for constructing on pole lines where we have green poles. So that's 1 month from today. In theory, we will be constructing on pole lines where we have permission or conditional licenses to attach.
Thanks.
The slide.
Yep, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's what we came up with earlier this week when Amanda and Brad, the team for Vantage, and I met, is moving to this bid process and getting a timeline together to have it, the first one packaged up, go through the timeline and have construction. Because I mean, everyone's interested in that one question, which is when will we see them actually doing the work? Even if that work is not close to their house, at least they're doing something somewhere. And we're aiming for that mid-August timeline. And there's a lot of reasons why we're moving this direction, primarily financially and accountability wise, for what we've been doing in the past.
Does that package include cleanup of like some of these areas that are still
Yeah,
sort of
Yep.
underway, but
yep. I just can't I can't say it enough that the start of the project happened when Vantage came on board on February 18th. Like, complete reset of the project is kind of a pain to see the progress we've made up until then and to see things slow down so much. We were not going in a good direction. And it has taken, at some point, we'll look back and say, I can't believe we fixed this, reset the ship direction in 4 months, given that we were going in a different direction for 3 years. There's a lot of gaps. And you've probably heard, if you've been at every one of these calls, you've seen and heard directly about many, many, many of those, up and down. And there's a few others that you've probably seen if you're on the Public Broadband Committee, that are just like shocking things that we have to fix with the project. No one wants to stop working. We want to use the good weather to do this, but the direction we were going in was going to have some major problems for the network. And as I shared, I think Rick's on the call by email this morning, like, this is going to last us for 40 years. I don't want to come fix this every year for 40 years. We're going to build this and do it the right way and get it done. Brad, do you have other things on your engineering updates?
Yeah, I'll just touch on them quick. I know we're running quite long here. Just from the design perspective, we're in the final QC stages of our designs for all of Dryden and Caroline. So that's why we are working towards the bid process now. We are complete, which is allowing us to submit those pole applications today. And then lastly, in terms of Caroline huts, you've heard previously that we're going to have one at the town hall and one down in Speedsville. We've condensed that into just having one site at the town hall. Really no concerns there by converting to only one. That one down in Speedsville would have been nice, but it's not necessary given the distance to serve all those, on Melnick Road, which would be our longest span. So that's what I had, Dave.
Thanks, Brad. Any questions for Brad? Yeah. Amanda, finance for June.
So financials for June, again, because construction's a little bit slower right now, there wasn't a large amount of expenses out. But I can tell you July's expenses, what we paid in July was large, because some bills finally came through. So other than that, one good thing is we've got accounts receivable. Alice and I have been working really hard at, if someone hasn't paid and it's 2 months, we start really following up with them and kindly saying your service can be turned off. And that usually gets a reaction and they take care of it. But other than that, we will be having to borrow from the town a little bit over the next few months as we wait for MIP expenses to come through, to be reimbursed. Because when I did the project budget and projections, I was expecting some money in 2025. So it'll be fine. I'm not worried about it, but you will see that on here just so you're aware. Any questions? Okay, Dave, you want to do the next slide? I should say that I think I have some information I've got to go double check on this slide. Number one, you'll notice there was a dip from May to June. That's because in May, there was a billing for the extended installation that we billed for. So that is included in there. That probably shouldn't include in that number. But again, I just took the total and didn't go farther. So, so I do need to do a little correction on this slide for next month. But again, our expenses, yes, they go up and down, but that's just because we have some expenses that happen semi-annually or annually. I actually just paid in July a bill for pole rental to Frontier. So there's always going to be that type, but on the trend, we are going the direction we need to go.
Thanks, Amanda.
It looks like we're breaking even or very, very close to that, to our monthly operational expenses now.
Yes, we are now pretty close to breaking even. Obviously, some months are better than other, or, but again, on the average, yes.
Great.
I mean, this is showing June, we had a $6,000. After we paid our monthly expenses, there was $6,000 left to pay for everything else, which includes installations. Now, the average installation costs about $1,000 with equipment and labor. So this, profit on the monthly expenses from the monthly revenue instantly got eaten up by 6 of the 30 installations. The rest of it is part of our capital expenditure that will be paid for over the long run. So I know in the past it was like, wow, once we're profitable, like we can start to do, we got a lot of stuff to pay for after the monthly expenses.
Got to pay off those bonds somehow.
All the monthly bills, and then all the installations costs, and then all the bonds for all the construction. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. I don't think there's any changes on HR, admin, insurance, are there?
I don't know. Do we want to introduce Matt?
Is
Or
Matt
did
here?
you do that last week? Last time.
I thought I did, but it wasn't Matt. It was Matt from Lightspeed.
That was the operations meeting.
Oh,
I think you did. Yeah, I think you did briefly last week, Dave.
Matt, can you put your camera on by any chance?
I can try here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh my. That's not
there he
very
is.
flattering.
Working from home today. So
Yeah,
Matt
exactly.
has been hired. He has been digging in deep for a lot of things for us, finding information. So we're like, Dave and I are like, hey, can you go find this? So he digs in and finds it. So it's been great having another person to help with that. So just want to introduce Matt. We have a new email. We have an accounts payable at Dryden Fiber email to help move we're trying to move all invoices to that email. Matt's taking care of all of those for the project, and getting second set of eyes, which has been very helpful to catch anything we might have missed, question, etc. The other thing I do want to mention, thanks, Matt, for coming on. I just got our first insurance quote for the project, for the infrastructure that we now have. Got the first one back, had a few questions, talked to the insurance agent. I have one more provider agent that said, oh yeah, I'll have something for you next week. So I'm waiting for that other piece to come back so we can look at these providers to make sure we have insurance on our POPs, on the electronics, on the wires. Even like covers insurance, it's insurance when they move wire to go be installed, which I didn't know. In transit, like when equipment or wire is being in transit to go get installed, it would then, because it's not on site anymore, it's on the subcontractor's vehicle, they would actually have coverage there. I was like, oh, interesting.
Wow.
So anyway, so the insurance is taking some time. Partially, I got bogged down getting inventory once I got that, and then having to get it back to our and the insurance agents we've been talking to. So that is still in process, I guess. I will say that it's not cheap, but insurance usually isn't. But I think it's very necessary, and I wouldn't be surprised as we go farther that we're going to get questions from either contractors or grant administrators saying, hey, what's your insurance on your project? And we can then say, well, we have insurance for the town, but now we also have insurance on our equipment. So that's important too.
All right. Thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
Legal and policy, we discussed and updated we approved the force majeure and credit schedule. I've updated the SLAs and sent those to our website editor, to Kyle, to post. Those should get posted. If they haven't been posted this week, probably next week. So those will be pushed out for the public. That's it for that part of the meeting. I did want to look at this permitting steps. This is what we put together about a year ago on permitting. I'll share the Broadband Committee has a copy of the deck. This is the last slide of the deck. This is a year ago, the process of permitting. I can ask Brad to spend some time updating this as needed to make sure it's aligned with what we're doing now. But generally, there's a lot of steps that have to get processed to touch one of these utility poles, to put stuff on there, to get permission to put stuff on there, to have things moved around on the poles, things that I wasn't aware of 2 years ago when I joined the project to help out with marketing, and I knew a little bit more by a year in. So it's one of the biggest things we do is putting the fiber onto these poles, and there is really not a lot of variation and creativity in doing this. It has to follow a very consistent process for all of the people, from the owner of the pole to every other tenant on the pole, to be able to do it. And because it's live, both in terms of hot electricity, but also cable, telephone, TV, like no one wants to have their service messed up at all, because when we added our stuff to the poles, it messed with theirs. So lots of steps for us to use these poles. And we don't own the poles. We pay rent on them when we do use them. Otherwise, it's trespassing, which is, I believe, illegal. That's it for this part of the meeting, which is also the entire agenda for this meeting. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you've learned some stuff and you have some better idea of what's going on with the project. We will meet again in 2 weeks on July 25th. We'll do a deeper dive in some of these topics. We should have more progress updates on where we are with permits, as well as that first bid package going out, receipt of bids, and then as we get to mid-August, start to award those and use this new process for construction going forward. I know we're at about 90 minutes. I'll leave it open for any quick questions. And thank everyone for being here today. Any questions?
When will we be discussing the POPs and the correction to grounding and that kind of thing to that?
I'm meeting
That
with
gonna
Brad
be-
and their auditor next
Okay.
week. So from there, we'll know of those recommendations, of the findings and the recommendations, what we should do next and who should do that work. And then we'll bring that to the committee for discussion. But thanks for a deep dive into looking at those results.
I'd like to see, I think Graham mentioned this, I'd like to see better images because a lot of the images that they describe how each of those is going to be constructed, you can't read the labels.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're a little too small.
It might
I'm
have,
sorry.
yeah. It might
The
have
things
just
that show
been,
the things that show what's going to be on the racks and all that, right? A lot of it's not readable.
Yeah, it probably just how it was exported to being emailed to me.
Yeah.
And then shared with you. But we can, I'm sure the data is very clear. I mean, for them, but I want to make it clear for you guys too.
And at some point, I would like to see inside these pops and the CO at some point. I did talk to Tony about this, but of course he's out now. That he was going to take me around and take a look at, peek at some of them. But it gives me a better understanding of what's there. So
Yeah, anytime.
it's hard. Yeah. So
I probably
Yeah,
visit
I actually
Pop or CO every week. So
yeah, I think I've seen all of them now. But yeah,
Tony was on the tour with
yeah,
the
yeah, I couldn't
USDA.
make it. Yeah.
We can definitely do a public broadband committee tour and just start the CO here at Town Hall at DPW and go see all 4 spots at once.
And I just want to make sure that we are entertaining, if we're going to go to DC, that we are entertaining solar, at least on our new pops down in Caroline, if that's a possibility. You designing a shed, you can design a shed that if you use a certain type of roofing, you can put a clips on and then attach a panel later on. But let's think about that of more sustainability there.
Mark Whitmer
So,
did bring that up, and there is some back and forth
okay.
about doing that. I can share what we've done so far on.
Okay, no, just as long as we're thinking about it, Dave, it just occurred to me, when we start sending other stuff around, that would be a nice, I mean, we should be looking at that. I mean, and fortunately, these ponds network don't take very much power, so it's not like, well, it's not huge amounts, but if you can supplement it a little, it's, and for changing. So I want to understand that DC change or whatever, and it probably not a whole committee thing, but I'm definitely interested or want to understand that to make sure that we're set, especially if we're going to change direction slightly, how we're going to put the equipment in or power the equipment.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I want to
The
understand
DC part is part of moving to Calix, which we're still discussing. So
okay, yeah.
that's a kind of a brief answer to that, but we're going to dive deep into the report and see how that fits into what we're trying to do. Some things, as with any audit, some things are must do right away. Some things are nice to have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And some things are if A, B, C, then D, E, F. So we'll get through that next week and have a deeper report. But I did want to flag some of the things that were in there for you guys to know what was going on with the pops that were designed by our previous partner.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time today.
Great.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.